road through the jungle, and I think these trees here were probably killed by Agent Orange. I'm fairly sure they were.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and Agent Orange.
What was your role in Vietnam War?
I was primarily a writer. That's what my MS is. We had photographers, but I was an enthusiastic photographer by that point.
How long were you serving in Vietnam?
Exactly 365 days.
Okay. How often did you write to your mom and dad? What do you
Oh,
think?
every 2 days, a day or two, in long letters like this. One thing they don't talk about in Vietnam is how boring it was. And rather than getting into pot or drinking or all that stuff, I wrote home. And apparently, they told me afterwards that my spelling gave them hours of endless pleasure. I can't spell worth prudence, and still
my
can't.
goodness. Show me the very first thing that you wrote home to mom and dad. And where were you when you wrote that?
I was in Cam Ranh Bay. I'd just flown in and had no idea where I was going to end up. And so, and this kind of reflects that.
Let's have a little
Okay,
piece of that.
it says, "Dear Mom, Dad, and Becky, I made it through. I lost Sunday altogether. My address is still temporary. Please don't write to Cam Ranh Bay. This afternoon I moved to another replacement center farther south in Bien Hoa near Saigon. I should know in a day or so where I'm to be stationed. I've seen my first natives. They are small, have very good posture, are strong, and their honesty is not not above suspicion." That's it. I'm not sure I believe. Okay. They look fascinating. Sandbags, helicopters, wooden barracks appear almost in endless supply. I'm in a little or no danger. For a typical American with a fetish about cleanliness, Vietnam is bothersome. Shower systems are primitive, latrines don't have running water, and sand is everywhere. I brought too much junk with me. Love, Conrad.
All of this you did for the time that you were there in Vietnam, and now all these years later, what happened that you said, I need to write a book?
Well, it started out with my friend, a guy I had not met before, contacting me. And he's kind of a military gadfly. He'd been in my division. I didn't know him, but he's just fascinated with this stuff. And so at some point he found out about me. And he's really good on the internet. And so he managed to find the guy I'd been out in the jungle with, that unit, one of the key guys. And this guy in the unit ran down all of the fellows in his unit using internet, which is kind of beyond me, but he did figure out how to do it. And so we had reunions, and I got their email addresses, and so that was what brought this out. So I started printing pictures and scanning them and then sending out emails. We had a great time. I wasn't really enthusiastic about the Vietnam War. I mean, it's a war I really didn't approve of.
Yeah.
But it was a stupid war, but it was my stupid war. And so I didn't care about the war, but I began to realize I did care about the guys I'd been over there with. And so at a certain point, I started getting enthusiastic about it, started writing a thing. And then after I got into it, I realized the best way to organize it was through my letters home, because they had dates on them and everything. And a lot of them talked about the stories I was writing. In fact, most of them did. So I was able to assemble this thing with pictures, stories, letters, and it started having a good time with it.
There's a story that you have about a dog.
Wrote a lot of dog stories. Pets were a big deal over there.
Okay.
Something a lot of people don't talk about.
So this is
And
actually
so here's the actual story.
the article.
Yeah, and this one actually made it into Stars and Stripes. If you got in there, you
big
made
time.
it. So
Big
this
time
is a
stuff.
big time story.
Okay, let's
Okay.
hear some of that.
GI's four-legged war trophy to swap sunshine for snow. Bien Hoa, Vietnam. During a year's tour in Vietnam, GIs develop a startling knack for accumulating some outlandish collections of war stories. They are understandably reluctant to allow their prized possessions to fall by the wayside. Sergeant George Dexter is especially proud of his prized possession, his dog Thor. So proud, in fact, that he's taking Thor home with him. Dexter is quick to defend his pooch from the assaults of prudish pedigree specialists. I've become attached to him. He's different from other dogs. He doesn't act like a dog, Dexter says loyally. Thor isn't any breed of hound in particular. He's a small, thin, black and white splotch, easygoing Vietnamese dog with a winning yawn. Thor is known in his neighborhood for his ability to celebrate every noteworthy occasion by sleeping soundly through it. Like any prospective GI trying to get into the Army, Thor has to take a physical before he can go back to Dexter's world. Later, he will become the first Vietnamese dog in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Oh, man.
Isn't that fun? I think there's some value in seeing the little lives. And I certainly talk about a lot of them here. We were primarily trying to, encourage people, pep them up, send out stuff to the papers at home, and trying to keep morale up.
Right, right.
A lot of these are short. In fact, almost all these are short stories. They really are. I was originally going to call this Little War Stories. That's what I wanted. But my publishers took the little off. It says it's a war book.
Yeah.
But a lot of the books, all the combat and there's not a lot of combat in
Right.
here.
It's more of just
It's
the
more,
life.
It's
and
more
experiences
life, and this is not necessarily typical of what other people had. I mean, there's some people, even when I was there, that were having a really ghastly experience farther north. I was fairly far south.
You talked to me earlier off camera a little bit about this kind of marketplace. You write about that.
Maybe I should just read this one.
Sure.
Near Fire Sport Base Pershing. How important is a package from home, and what can you do in the bush when mom decides to send you a 10-pound birthday cake or an inedible Christmas present? The answers are either you eat it, share it, hump it, or throw it away. A whole trading culture is sprung up to handle any problem that might arise, like having more than you can eat or the wrong goodies. Several members of Alpha Company's 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry of the 1st Air Cavalry Division opened their company system to view. PFC Donald Crow gave a running description. It's kind of like a marketplace. We order it and get it from home, then we start trading. There are even sharp traders like me. I traded a can of Nestle's for a can of tuna fish. What I didn't tell the guy was that he needed milk. It gets sophisticated. We even have trading on credit. It's generally agreed that the contents of food packages are a welcome addition to sea rations and LERPs. As one grunt summed it up, it's an attractive nuisance we'd be sorry to live without. Isn't that fun?
You mentioned this magazine here. So this is a very, called The First Team. What is this story about briefly?
Well, this is the cachet.
Okay.
This is my pride and joy. This is, I think,
Okay.
my best story.
Oh my goodness.
So these are some of the same from the same time.
Cachet.
This is the picture. I wish I could have gotten my hands on the actual slide because I think it's one of my
that's
great
cool.
pictures. It's Tim Payne, he's still a friend of mine, and he's
awesome.
And he suffered.
Yeah.
It shows how uncomfortable they were. Jungle was wet all the time. It would rain only part of the day, but the problem was it stayed wet, and so we were running around in the wet all the time, and it was just amazingly miserable.
It's stories like this and so many others that are in this book, just little insights that you don't necessarily get, which is great about
Well,
this
I'm
book.
very curious to see what people think,
Yeah.
because I'm also hoping that I can, find a few people, bring them out of the bush that were, that I've lost touch with.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and your book and your pictures and your home with us today. We really appreciate it. And most importantly, thanks for your service.
Oh, well, thank you.